Sue. So today we're going to be talking about the different types of sleep. Now we now know that sleep is important and that we need to make sure that we get enough of it and that we are not in sleep deprivation. However, it's important to understand that there are different types of sleep. In fact, there is deep sleep and there is light sleep and there is REM sleep, and there's different stages in both light and deep sleep. And we need both. However, it's important to understand that at different ages, we need different amounts of each. So in deep sleep, this is where when a child learns something new, they're going to create a new neural network in order to access that information a little bit faster in the future. Now, because these little babies of ours are learning something new every single day, they need a lot of deep sleep compared to us because they're building so many new neural networks. That's why severe sleep deprivation, and in particular deep sleep deprivation, is a cause of an underdeveloped brain, right? We're all focused on making sure that our children become, the smartest and the most successful and all of these different things. However, we neglect the basics of making sure that their brains are having enough deep sleep in order to learn all these new things. Now, light sleep is also very important. It's kind of like this pruning sleep. So this is where we fine tune the connections in the brain. It's also a time in which if you have a question, a concern, something you can't quite figure out the answer to, in that light sleep, your brain is going to attempt to resolve that question by making connections that you may not otherwise do during awake times. And that's why oftentimes you may go to bed with a question, a concern, or a worry and wake up in the morning with an answer. So let's look at this little diagram together right here. Okay, so this is a typical night. Okay, so you'll notice that every dip and then raise in the wave is a sleep cycle. Now, on average, we will have about 5 full sleep cycles per night. But you'll notice that in the second half of the night, so after cycle 3, our sleep cycles become lighter, in which we get less night sleep. In those lighter sleep moments and REM sleep, that's when we're going to do that pruning. That's where we're going to have dreams. That's why we're more likely to remember dreams when we wake up in the morning if we've had good light sleep. However, in the first part of the night, typically before 3 in the morning, this is where we're getting our very deep sleep cycles. And this is where the brain development of those new neural networks will actually happen. So when you are evaluating how much deep sleep your child is getting versus light sleep, it's important to note that your baby needs more deep sleep than you do, right? At different ages, we have different needs in terms of deep versus light sleep. Now, obviously, a child needs a lot more sleep overall than we do, but they need a lot more deep sleep. So when you are trying to assess your child's sleep, you want to assess if A, they're lacking in total sleep, but then you also want to see how much deep sleep they're having. So important ways in order to do that. And we have a great little assessment that you can do right under this video to help you sort of make sense of identifying if your child has a deep sleep issue is figuring out, A, is your child going to bed early enough? If your child is going to bed late, we are automatically cutting out many hours of deep sleep. Is your child waking up during that first portion of the night before 3 in the morning? If that is happening, then we're cutting in deep sleep. And the more it happens, the more we're cutting in deep sleep, because every time you cut deep sleep, you can actually prevent a cycle from even going into deep sleep. So what can happen is, let's say your child's waking up every 1 or 2 hours, they may never actually be dipping into deep sleep, or very little. They might actually be sort of napping throughout the night. So they're getting a lot of light sleep, but not a lot of deep sleep. Another thing to consider is in that first half of the night, do they look very restless? Are they moving a lot? Are they having night terrors? Are they having nightmares? Are they crying in their sleep and waking up, etc., etc. So when you're assessing your child's sleep, you have to consider all of these factors, not just the amount of sleep overall, but the type of sleep that they are actually getting. Now, a sleep cycle is between 45 minutes to 90 minutes long. And babies do not sleep in cycles before the age of 4 months. They start doing so at the age of 4 months. That's why we know of the common 4-month sleep regression that can cause a lot of sleep problems. But even before they actually sleep in cycles, they do have light sleep and deep sleep. It's just that the amount of time that they spend in diverse sections of sleep is very variable. They will generally spend very little time in light sleep and a lot more time in deep sleep.